Hi, I'm Deborah Kuhn, and my article is entitled Alternative Liability Theory, Solving the Mystery of Whodunit in Foodborne Illness Cases. The Center for Disease Control estimates that 76 million cases of foodborne illness occur each year. Approximately 325,000 of these cases require hospitalization, and about 5,000 of these cases result in death. And this is really a staggering number when you think about it, because if you consider the number of deaths that are related to contaminated food, well, these deaths far outweigh all the other deaths related to the 15,000 products that are regulated by the U.S. Consumer Protection Safety Commission. And this includes asbestos, and lead paint, and toxic substances. And the annual economic impact of dealing with only the top 5 illness-causing pathogens amounts to about $6.9 billion a year. And that's mostly spent on medical care, productivity losses, and premature deaths. Now, notable instances of foodborne illnesses include the 2006 E. coli outbreak that was traced back to fresh spinach that was contaminated by cattle feces containing E. coli. Now, this contaminated spinach infected 204 individuals across the United States and resulted in 104 hospitalizations, 31 cases of kidney failure, and 3 deaths. Now, in contrast, in 2003, a local outbreak of hepatitis A in Pennsylvania infected 650 people and resulted in 3 deaths. And this infection was traced back to green onions that were served in a local Chi-Chi's restaurant. Now, foodborne illness cases are currently decided based on products liability law, and it requires the plaintiff to prove that the food product in question contained a defect and that the plaintiff suffered harm as a result. The product liability defines a harm-causing ingredient in a food product defective if a reasonable consumer would not expect to find the food product to contain that ingredient. And yet, despite the significant economic impact of foodborne illnesses, there's a very low success rate associated with these claims, and it results in minimal deterrent effect as a result of the litigation. Now, one of the reasons that impacts the successful litigation of these claims is the difficulty in establishing the causal link between the defective food product and the illness. The primary factors include the plaintiff's inability to identify the contaminated food product, the illness-causing pathogen, or even the appropriate defendant. You see, most illness-causing pathogens have an incubation period, and it's likely that the plaintiff was eating other food products before they even realize that they're sick. And so the inability to identify the specific product impacts the ability to identify the specific pathogen responsible for their illness. Now, the USDA reports that plaintiffs were unable to identify a specific pathogen in over half of the cases that they studied. And the downstream chain of commerce also makes it difficult to identify exactly who's responsible for their illness. For example, a chicken Caesar salad has at least 3 products that could have been contaminated along the supply chain. The lettuce fields could have been infected as described earlier. The chicken could have been infected with salmonella on the farm, in the packing plant, or it could have been improperly cooked or handled in the restaurant, while the salad dressing may contain infected eggs or spoiled anchovies. And because of the difficulty in proving causation, the majority of foodborne illness cases do not result in lawsuits, and the costs are borne by society as a whole. So, as a direct result of the vast numbers of unsuccessful claims, there's really no deterrent effect. There's no incentive for food-producing firms to improve their policies and procedures. Companies weigh the likelihood and the expense of litigation against the cost of implementing new policies and procedures, and basically they're going to choose a less expensive option. And even when there is a successful claim, most companies really don't feel the full financial impact due to product liability insurance payouts. But in 2006, the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania chose to apply the alternative liability standard to alleviate the problems of identification and causation when several plaintiffs sued 2 poultry companies for producing turkey products that were contaminated with listeria. The restatement second of torts provides in part that where the conduct of 2 or more actors is tortuous, and it is proved that harm has been caused to the plaintiff by only one of them, but there is uncertainty as to which one has caused it, the burden is upon each such actor to prove that he has not caused the harm. The plaintiffs in the case had consumed turkey products produced by both defendants, and the illness-causing pathogen was found in each plant. But because the plaintiffs were unable to pinpoint exactly which product caused their illness, they were basically unable to prove which one of the two defendants was liable. However, applying alternative liability theory shifted the burden of proof to the defendants in the case, and giving each one the opportunity to prove they're not responsible for the harm. Because, defendants are most likely going to be in a better position to determine which one of them is responsible for causing the illness. Because defendants have access to their food prep areas, and they can conduct testing to determine if contamination exists in their facilities, and they can identify potential contamination in the supply chain. Sellers know who they're selling to, and buyers know who they're buying from. So, in conclusion, we see that millions of Americans are affected by foodborne illness each year, and it really does continue to be a growing problem. And the financial effects are felt in many economic sectors, including increased insurance premium and taxes to offset the treatment that's been provided to the victims. But because of the difficulties in identifying the defendant, the contaminated food product, or the illness-causing pathogen, less than a third of the plaintiffs were successful in their litigation attempts. By applying the alternative liability doctrine with its relaxed causation requirements, the burden of proof is shifted to the defendant, which can allow a case to continue where otherwise it probably wouldn't. So, the basic tenets of tort law are to compensate an injured victim and to provide deterrence. Application of alternative liability increases the likelihood that food producers will be held liable for their actions, and increased jury awards will increase deterrence and in turn will cause companies to implement improved safety policies and procedures to decrease the likelihood of foodborne illnesses. Thank you.